Okay, so just continuing with the exam questions, just to say on that last question there for your conclusion, I've written surgery should only be used when there are no other options. There's tons of conclusions that would be acceptable. You could say surgery is dangerous and should be avoided where possible. You could say surgery is really beneficial and should be used even though there are risks. You could say, because surgery is dangerous, then it might be best to change your lifestyle and see if that works first. Anything, as long as you've got an advantage, a disadvantage, and a conclusion, you should be able to pick up full marks there. Question 5, I'm going to do with you. It's kind of like a maths question. So this is question 5. Apologies if that was too small and you couldn't see it in the earlier video. If you haven't actually attempted it and you can see it better now, then try it now. I'm going to do it with you. So you're told that the daily diet of a male should provide 2,500 calories. So that's the amount of calories that your average male needs every single day. And of those 2,500 calories, they're saying 4 parts should be carbohydrates, 3 parts should be protein, and 3 parts should be fat. So you shouldn't be getting all of your calories from fatty foods. You should be getting your calories from a mixture of carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. And they want to know the amount of energy that should come from protein. So they're telling you that 3 parts should be from protein, but they want to know exactly how many calories 3 parts would be. So what you need to do is you need to add up. So you're given a ratio here, 4 parts to 3 parts to 3 parts. I don't know if you've done ratios in maths. Hopefully you have. When you're given a ratio, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to add the different parts together. So I'm going to do 4 plus 3 plus 3. I'm adding my parts together and I'm getting 10. So I've got 10 parts in total. And then I can see that 3 parts are protein. That tells me that 3 out of the 10 parts are protein. Okay? So if I know 3 out of the 10 parts are protein, then I need to get, so 3 out of 10 is 30%. So if I know that 30% of the diet should be protein, then I just need to get 30% of 2,500. So if I want to get 30% of 2,500, I mean, this is the way I do it, but apologies if you do it a different way in maths. I always multiply by... So if I do that, 2,500 multiplied by 0.3, I get 750, and my answer is 750. Now, there are probably different ways to do that, and if you've done it a way that you do in maths that you're more comfortable with, that is absolutely fine, as long as you're getting an answer of 750. Okay, so 3 out of 10 parts are protein. That's 30%. That must be protein. So of your 2,500 calories, a third of that must be protein, and a third of 2,500, or 30% of 2,500 is 750. Do let me know if you've had problems with that, and if you haven't done ratios in maths, which maybe you haven't. Right, next question. A few more little calculation questions here. So they have given you a table with male A and male B, and they've told you every day how many calories male A consumes and how many calories male B. So you can see that male B has a few more calories than male A, but there's not a massive difference. But then it tells you how they're getting their calories. So you can see that for male A, it's getting quite a lot from carbohydrates, a good bit from fat, and some protein. And then if you compare male B, you can see male B has got a lot more protein in there. He's got less carbohydrates and he's got less fat. Okay, so you need to compare the two, male A and male B. And then it also tells you in hours how much exercise they do every day. So you can see that male B is doing a lot more exercise than male A. And then it asks you, state and explain which male has made lifestyle choices that are more likely to increase his risk of heart disease. So you're looking at male A and you're looking at male B, and your first mark is going for picking one out of male A and male B, who is more likely to get heart disease. So you pick one of them and then you explain your answer by referring to the information that is in this table. The next one is a calculation question, okay? It's the waist to hip ratio that we spoke about in the last video, okay? So we said it's not just about carrying fat on your body, but the worst type of fat to carry on your body is around your abdominal area, so abdominal fat, which is around your middle. So you use this waist to hip ratio to measure how much fat you're carrying around your middle, and it says that male A has a measurement of 95 centimeters. So if he took a measuring tape and measured around his waist, he has 95 centimeters around his waist, and his hips have a measurement of 90 centimeters, and they want you to calculate the waist to hip ratio and then write your answer in the form n is to 1. Have a go at that yourself. I am going to go through the answer in a second, but it is just a simple calculation. Press pause, have a go at those two questions for yourself, and then press play when you're ready to go through the answers. So I've done the answer to B. You should get male A. You get 1 mark for just specifying that male A, and then you get 2 marks for explaining why. So I've said male A consumes more fat than male B. Okay, so this is the figure that you're going to be looking at, the fat. When we're talking about cardiovascular disease, fat is the danger. Okay, so you're not going to say that male A has more carbohydrates than male B, because the carbohydrates aren't linked with heart disease. Okay, so it's the fat you need to focus on. So male A is getting more fat than male B. You can also focus on the exercise figure, because exercise or lack of exercise is linked to heart disease. So I'm saying he does less exercise than male B. Okay, so that will get you all 3 marks. You can also explain some. So you could say consumes more fat than male B. Fat can block arteries. So you can add a point there to explain, or you can just pick 2 pieces of information from the table, but that will get you your 3 marks. The next question I'm going to do with you, it's another ratio question. So I'm really hoping you have done ratios and maths. So he has a waist hip measurement of 95 to 90, and they want you to calculate the waist hip ratio. So when you're writing a ratio, the number for the waist was 95, and then I'm going to write that next to the measurement for hip, which is 90. So currently I have the ratio written as 95 to 90, but they want me to write my answer in the form of n is to 1. So I need to make one of these numbers 1. When you're trying to simplify a ratio, what you will do is you will pick the smaller of the 2 numbers, and then you'll divide both numbers by that number. So 95 and 90, 90 is smaller than 95, okay? That's my smallest number. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide both of these numbers by 90. So I'm going to do 95 divided by 90, and I'm going to do 90 divided by 90. 90 divided by 90 equals 1. 95 divided by 90 equals 1.05. So by dividing both of them by the same number, we've simplified the ratio. I've made this side 1 and this side is 1.05. So it's easier to see the relationship between them, and it satisfies the form that they wanted me to write my answer in. So that's your answer. 1.05 is to 1. Question number, totally scrolled past it. Question number 6, this is what we were doing at the start of the last video. You are asked to calculate percentage increase. So they've given you a table like what I had at the start of the video. This is coronary blood flow. So coronary again relates to your heart. It's the blood flowing to your heart. So it's the centimeters cubed is the volume per minute. So it's the amount of blood flowing through your heart every minute. And you can see at rest, this is the amount of blood that flows to your heart every minute. But when you exercise, more blood is flowing to your heart. And we've got 2 different groups of people, group 1 and group 2. And you are asked to calculate the percentage increase for group 2 volunteers. So you're going to do exactly what we did at the start of the lesson. You need to find out how much the blood flow is increasing by. Then you take the increase, you divide it by the initial figure, and you multiply by 100. So have a go at doing that question for yourself, and then press play when you're ready to see the answer. So your answer should be 139%, or you could have written it as 138.7. So you're doing what we did before. You are calculating the increase. So it's gone from 0.93 up to 2.22. That gives you an increase of 1.29. Then you get your increase, you divide it by your initial, so what it was when it was at rest, multiply by 100, and you get 139% increase. The next question suggests an explanation for why the coronary blood flow at rest is slightly higher in group 2. So I haven't told you this, but mightn't have noticed this, but group 2, they do smoke. Group 1, they do not smoke. So they're asking you, why is the blood flow at rest higher for the smokers? Why would smoking mean your blood flow, the amount of blood going to your heart when you're just sitting there, sitting down, why is that higher for smokers than for non-smokers? Have a go at that question for 2 marks and press play when you're ready to see the answer. Okay, so I've written that there's not as much oxygen in smokers' blood. There is a reason for that, which you would have learned back in year 8. Cigarettes contain carbon monoxide, which is a toxic substance. And what carbon monoxide does is it gets into your blood and it attaches itself to your red blood cells. Now, hopefully you remember that your red blood cells are in charge of carrying oxygen around your body. If you're a smoker, and you've got carbon monoxide already attached to your red blood cells, then your red blood cells don't have as much space to carry oxygen around your body. So in a smoker's blood, less oxygen is being carried around the body because the red blood cells are carrying carbon monoxide as well, and there's not as much room for the oxygen. Okay, so if the smoker's blood contains less oxygen, okay, the heart still needs the same amount of oxygen. And if there's less oxygen in the blood, then that just means you need more blood to supply that same amount of oxygen. Okay, so more blood needs to be pumped to the heart because the blood itself has less oxygen. So it's all coming back to the oxygen. Remember, we need oxygen for respiration. The heart needs blood for oxygen. If more blood is being pumped, it's because it's not getting the oxygen it needs. We're just going to do, I think, we'll just do one more. Okay, last question. Okay. We haven't discussed this yet, but they do give you all the information you need in the question. It's just about being able to analyze that information. So they've drawn the heart and they've told you that fat builds up in the coronary arteries. So the coronary arteries are these arteries here. I told you that they're the blood vessels that bring blood to the heart itself. And they said if lots of fat builds up in these coronary arteries, you're at risk of heart disease. And they say a heart bypass operation is one method used to treat heart disease. Now, we haven't talked about a heart bypass, but I want you to read this information here and see if you can then describe how a heart bypass treats heart disease. Okay, so you get your first mark for just writing what was already there. So how does a bypass work? You put new blood vessels in that will bypass the blockage. So basically you've got one artery that's blocked, and what they do is they put in just new blood vessels so that the blood can flow through the new blood vessels and it doesn't have to go through the blocked blood vessels. So I've just taken that sentence from here. New blood vessels bypass the blocked vessels, and that gets you your first mark, even though it's already on your test paper. Then you just need to say why that's important. If you put in new blood vessels, then blood can now flow to the heart. This is only a 2-mark question, so I haven't started talking about oxygen and respiration. If this was a 4-mark question, I would write allows blood to flow to the heart. Blood carries oxygen. Oxygen is needed for respiration. But when you're just asked for 2 marks, just saying that the new blood vessels will allow blood to flow to the heart will be sufficient. So you're not required to actually know about bypass surgery, but that's what they've done here is that they've given you the picture, they've given you a description, and they've just asked you to read the information for yourself and interpret it. So the only treatment that you kind of need to know a little bit about is the stents, but they can give you information about other treatments and then ask you to read that information and answer a question on it. But as with this, they've given you the information that you need on the question. It's not something that you would need to learn off by heart yourself. That is all the exam questions we're going to go through. I was originally going to do, I don't know what it's out of because I have more questions that I'm now not going to go through. It was originally out of 41. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 6 is 17. It was out of 41, but there's 17 questions that I 17 marks of questions that I actually haven't done. So that means 41 minus 17. It's out of 24. So have a look at what you've done and give yourself a mark out of 24.